when I'm getting to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Denim. As a business owner myself, I personally know the importance of financial stability and preserving cash flow to help navigate through any freight market. With Denim's comprehensive service offering, you now have an all-in-one financial partner whose platform includes factoring, payments, freight audit, document collection management, and analytics, which help keep your business financially healthy and increase your team's time to focus on revenue-producing activities. You can also take advantage of Denim's free credit check, which they perform on all of your customers. And Denim will proactively reach out to you if they spot any signs of credit deterioration. Finally, Denim always pays your carriers first. As a broker, this is imperative to preserving your credit score in the market, which ultimately helps you become a broker of choice to your carrier partners. Are you ready to learn more? Visit denim.com to schedule a demo today. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Friday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. We're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to talk about fraud, but not like the kind that everybody likes to talk about out there. It's going to be on like the back end stuff. And we're going to do a little Fraud Friday today with my friends over at Denim. And I got my man, Chad Capooth, on the show. Chad, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate you having me on. Excited to talk about fraud in the industry.
Dude, it's man, it's nonstop right now, right? And it's like it's coming from every angle, Chad. Like there, it's like the spam calls that come through on my phone, the spam text messages, the emails that are coming through. Like it's non-stop right now. And I'm kind of at a point where it's like, dude, I don't even and like as we were talking before we were on the show about like doing sales calls and stuff, like I get why people don't answer numbers anymore that they don't recognize, because it's like, is it an actual scammer at this point? There's like a higher likelihood that it is.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. There's definitely an uptick. I mean, from the personal standpoint, I get probably 3 texts a day that are fraud. So I just don't respond. Same with the phone calls. Don't pick them up unless you know a number. Where it used to be really easy to tell because there's grammatical errors. It's not the same anymore. They're using these AIs, and so it's like perfect English. So it's hard. And then definitely over the last probably 2 to 3 months, there has been a huge uptick in fraud in the freight industry that we are seeing, with people directly targeting our clients and then people directly targeting Denim. So it's getting crazy, and it's getting harder and harder to sift through what's real and what's fake.
Dude, and that's the thing, man. And before we get into any of the topic about that today, man, so like, what is your role at Denim? What are you doing behind the scenes there for those? Because I mean, this is the first time I've had you on the show, man. And I can already tell like it's not 30 minutes might not be enough. So we're gonna have to get you back.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, fraud and risk are not usually the bring the sex appeal that people want to talk about. It's one of those things that people would rather never happen to them, and so they kind of out of sight, out of mind. So What I do at Denim is I manage kind of the risk team, the risk side, everything that's kind of monetarily valued that goes through the system. I'm kind of trying to put eyes on to make sure it's protected and going in the right area. So for what I do is I set everything from work with my team to set debtor credit limits, approve new clients. We are also working on the collection side, making sure debtors are paying on time when they said they would, to contract negotiations, to the way we frame our contracts. So everything that would fit in that risk bucket, typically I'm touching, but primarily focused on the freight side. It's that collections and that debtor underwriting and that risk prevention that are the three big buckets.
So where are you guys noticing the most uptick in fraud that's coming in? Is it, people sending over fictitious bills of lading? Is it, is it fake shippers trying to invoice? Because like that's a whole other ball game that's going on out there. So kind of what is that, just for the audience, man? What is that thing that like, hey, this is what we're seeing on our side that's making a rise here?
Yeah, it's kind of the whole package, is what we're seeing the rise. It's everything from the fake bill of ladings, fake rate confirmations. It is fraudsters stealing the identity of a real business and trying to pose as that business to get loads booked or to sign up with a factoring company. When I say the whole package, what I mean is, back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, when this kind of fraud occurred, what you would do is you'd have one person to maybe have six cell phones or six landlines. They were a one-man show trying to do this. They could commit this fraud, but it was slower. They'd have to go into Photoshop and fake the bill of ladings. It took time. What's happened is this AI has given them the ability to do this instantly. These virtual phone numbers that you can go through Google and get has allowed them to spin up six phone numbers instantly. So, a good example of what we've seen recently is, I think it was from an IP location. These were coming out of Armenia, and what was happening is these fraudsters were stealing real MC numbers, real FMCSA data. They were then going on Secretary of State, downloading the articles of incorporation or organization for that entity, and then posing as that entity. They created fake IDs with the real owner's name, but their picture, and then they were posing as these clients. Then they created real debtors that were out there in the wild, but changed the email address and phone number on the rate confirmation and bill of ladings, so it was redirected to them and got as close to the real domain as possible. So what was end up happening is they were trying to pose as a real client, giving us real debtors, but what it ended up being was all fake, and it was all the same ring going through. So the whole package is really happening. The leverage of AI allows them to do it 10 times as fast as previous, and the English is almost perfect now, and the mistakes are rare. So it's really, really tough now to catch. Where, you know, if you saw a Dr. Bill of lading in the past, the lines were off, maybe the English was bad, or it was whited out and written over, so it was really obvious. And that's getting really hard to see. They're getting very sophisticated, so it's scary, but it's still detectable. But yeah, it's everything. It's all at once and everything nowadays.
Yeah, and there's one thing. So from the broker standpoint, we've seen a couple of instances here where customers, and even like I don't even know how this happened, but one of our prospects, or perceived prospects anyways, that we got an inbound email, and I'm like, something didn't seem right, but I'm also like, dude, I've been calling a lot of people. I didn't have the most accurate records. So it's like, full transparency. This is why you need a CRM. This is why you need to be logging all of this information, because again, getting hit up for a quote isn't out of the ordinary, right? And then I always, again, I don't want to say my spidey senses went off right away on this, Chad, but like I Googled the address in the signature, right? I'm like, all right, let's just check it out. It was a company. It was legit. They had a warehouse and everything here. And I was like, all right, cool. So I provided a quote, and then and this is the scary part, where it wasn't like an instant response. All right, come pick it up. They waited 24 hours and they're like, hey, your quote looks good. Let's get the ball rolling. And I was just, something just didn't feel right for me. So like, I just checked one more time, and then I checked the email, and then I saw the spelling error in there, dude. And it was close, man. It was so close. So fortunately, we didn't send them any information. Like, they didn't have, all they had was my email address, essentially, at the end of the day. I called the company that was on there, because again, man, they were fake, a real business. I called that company, and they're like, dude, you're like the 18th person that's called us in the last 2 weeks about this. And I'm like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, no, I don't need to talk to you any further about anything. But it's like, dude, the sophistication of these things, and it is the untrained eye it's tough to tell now, man, because you're right. It's not the prototypical blatant grammatical errors that were out there that just said, hey, you guys, this isn't right.
Yeah, you nailed on a few things that I really wanted to discuss there. 'Cause I think your approach to it was perfect. It's still not gonna to close all the loops, but I think it's a good approach. And so, two things that I've been kind of really preaching here over the last few months is use technology to help prevent fraud, but also use the old school approach. And unfortunately, what I label as old school now is just picking up the phone and calling. Just like if you got a text on your cell phone saying, "Hey, your credit card bill is past due. Click here to pay the link." You're probably not going to believe that text. You either go to your
Yeah.
credit card's company's website or you make the call. This is no different. If you get something that your spy sensor going off, don't dial the number from the email or the spreadsheet or the sheet they gave you. Google the company, look it up, go through it, talk to them. Another thing you brought up, you looked up the email. I think that's a great method too. I would take it a step further. What we notice is that they want to this their ability to like spin this up quickly. Like if they were going to try to spoof Denim as a company, maybe they do Denim dash factoring as an email account. So that's going to be kind of fooling as well. The other thing too is not every company uses their URL, their main URL is their domain name for their emails, and so
Mhm.
that can create some mismatch. So one thing I've been doing is there's tools out there called Who Is, and it's like Who Is domain searches. What the Who Is, and they're usually free. You'll bring up 100 sites that can do it, and you'll find a free one. What Who is you can type in that email domain, and it'll come back and it'll tell you how long that domain has been existed and who it belongs to. And
Mhm.
so if you've got a company like, oh, I don't know, like a Walmart, and all of a sudden you do a domain search on like walmarteat.com, and it comes back to this email was spun up a week ago, probably
Mhm.
probably a fraudulent account. So, but I think ultimately the best thing you can do is make that phone call because that's the ultimate litmus test, and you're going to know whether or not. And so, I think an approach of old school mixed with new school technology is going to be the best way because as technology gets better, it gets harder, and even for the technology leapfrogs, right? Like the fraud prevention technology gets a leg up, and then the process to figure out how to circumvent it. But what they can never really get around is just the old school. Make a phone call and just
Yeah.
talk to that person who shot you the email. Is this really you? Did you give this to me? Um, it's just about as foolproof as you get. So it's an interesting tactic. Not everybody these days likes to make those personal phone calls. I still really appreciate it. I still think it's a better way to go than email. But I would just encourage everybody out there listening to pick up the call. Just have a
Dude.
chat. See what they
I
say.
I had a vendor here recently, a new vendor that I got set up, and same thing, man. It was just an unknown phone number called in, and like I naturally just let things go to voicemail first, and then I'll check stuff after the fact because I am just a skeptic at heart. My friends at the NMFTA has this cybersecurity conference that I've been going to for like 3 years now. They have scared me shitless on so much stuff, Chad, that I'm like, I have so many walls built up about like what I'll do. And again, man, it was, they called, the email, that called back, and it just, again, I like to double check and triple check everything. And you see, and this is where I truly think the millennials of the world are going to excel in this next iteration because we know what the world looks like pre social media, pre everything being digital. So I think a lot of us, I can't speak for everybody, but like a lot of us are like skeptic at heart with some of this stuff where it's like, I'm not afraid to pick up the phone. And I also look at it from like a business development standpoint coming forward here, Chad, as AI dialers, all of this stuff become more and more of a thing. Dude, you being able to go and pound pavement and knock on doors, I think that's going to be the business development method of the future in the next probably 36 months.
Yeah. I mean, I love the phone call. I mean, it's so hard to return off email,
Yeah.
and I can't tell you how many times I get an email, thought I understood the tone, whether it's anger, happiness, excitement, make that phone call, and it's just completely different than what I expected. So I'm always going to push for the phone call. I think straying away from that, like we have, really as a society, at least in America, it's not great.
Mhm.
But I think just think it's the best way to prevent that fraud. It's just you can't. Well, look, AI is getting scary. It is getting to a point where if you have enough audio out there, these AIs can mimic your voice. But if you're calling the number on their website, if you're speaking to this person, if you have a relationship, you're gonna know, and it's the quickest way to like kind of screen that fraud out before it even gets into your doors.
Dude, I mean, so speaking of screening that fraud up before it gets into your doors, Chad, what is something that you would advise companies out there to start with, right? Like, hey, here's a step number one of like, this is what we need to implement today to minimize. Again, I'm not going to say eliminate because eliminate's a very, very broad word, but minimize the likelihood that that can creep inside. What have you guys seen some success stories out there in regard? Is it paperwork, identification? Kind of, I'll stop talking because I feel like I could spin this question 6 other different angles here.
Yeah, this is a good question. I think the toughest part to kind of set the stage to this question is how do you balance your customer experience with also fraud prevention, because you can over index on fraud prevention and then
Yeah.
provide a very bad customer experience. Then they don't want to come on board because you try to make them jump through a bunch of hoops. So always kind of customize your fraud prevention to how you best want to balance that customer experience. So it's not like risk reward. So things that I think the basics. I still see a lot of logistics company out there just not doing the bare minimum. So just do your basic due diligence when you get a new customer. Check on the paperwork, check on their existence. Are they credit worthy? Check on the email domain they gave you, the phone number. So have someone in the office or a tool in the office that is doing this, that's going out and confirming all this information. I think that's the biggest step that I see skipped is just the bare minimum. If you are already have those in place, and you feel like you've got a good process, have you revamped your process? Have you gone back and said, well, we set that up a year ago, it's still good? Because odds are the way this technology is progressing, it's not. And so complacency is a killer. So if you are getting complacent in the fact that you think your fraud prevention's up to speed because no fraud's been committed against you, that is the wrong mentality to have, because fraud is fast. It happens instantly. And so while you think you're protected, 30 minutes later, $100,000 could be out the door and you're not
Mhm.
recovering that. So don't get complacent, revamp it, look at it. And so, one good example are there are AI tools out there that will look at paperwork and tell you whether it's been doctored or altered. Can it you know, did they delete the date box? Did they delete the rate box and type over it? There's this ad tools that can read the metadata and then look at the layers and say something's off and something's fishy. So look at the tools that are out there that they can help you vet it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of third-party services out there that'll help you along the ways. And then the other thing too is if you have people in your office doing this, I think one scary thing, as much like complacency, is when someone's done this 100 times a day for the last 6 months, they get very kind of in the lull of
Mhm.
things. And so they won't necessarily review with as much intensity as they used to. So have refreshers, mix things up for them, kind of put them in seminars that they can learn more about how fraud's happening, keep that excitement up, because when they get kind of that lull of complacency, that's when things may slip through the cracks and that human error occurs. So, just review your processes, refresh them every, doesn't have to be once a quarter, but maybe twice a year. Refresh them, make sure you're up to speed. If you want to go even an extra mile, one thing that we're starting to do different at Denim is when a client would sign up, we'd ask for a photo ID that matched the name of the owner of the company, because we want to make sure it's the real company. With these people's abilities, these fraudsters' abilities to fake IDs, there's tools out there that let you kind of do that live ID verification. I think that's a fantastic tool. So they have to show their ID along their face in a live video. These tools will run a bunch of checks, whether the face matches ID, whether the driver's license ID matches the content of the ID in the picture. I think that's a great tool. I think if you want to go on the extreme aggressive end, things like Plaid and Stripe that do these bank integrations that can pool. Some banks do it, like a JP Morgan you can take a bank account number, they can tell you the header of that account name doesn't match the company. So before a carrier signs up, you know, hey, is this carrier ABC trucking match the bank name that I'm about to ACH to? Because with an ACH, the account name doesn't really matter. It's the bank account number and the routing number. With a bank wire, it does. So a lot of people prefer ACHs. So like checking with a JP Morgan or checking with a Plaid or Stripe to say, hey, does the bank account information belong to my carrier? It does. Great. And then of course there's tools out there like Highway, my carrier portal, RMIS out there. They're all out there that will vet these carriers for you. So don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. There's a bunch of third-party tools out there to help you. Keep looking for new ones that pop up, because they're also getting better as the fraud gets better. So just refresh. Don't get complacent. Pretend like there's holes and you're always trying to plug them, because these fraudsters learn how to get around what's out there, these preventative measures. And if you're not on
Mhm.
top of it, They will, I promise.
I think a lot of organizations out there need to understand that you're not too small for fraud, right? Like I think like everybody is immune. The second you think that you're not at risk or at possibly being exposed to that, I think you're just exponentially increasing the likelihood of something happening to your organization. And then another thing too, right? Like who has access to your financials inside of your business, right? Who actually has access to your finances? Is it just the CFO? Is there a controller? Or is it a startup organization where there's like 5 or 6 people who have access to it? And again, I would want to start there. Like if I'm just trying to look at this as a business owner right now, Chad. Step one, maybe I don't have any fraud prevention inside of my organization. I would want to start with who has access to my money, who
Yeah.
knows what's what.
Yeah, we've been talking external fraud a lot. Internal fraud prevention is a big one too. Those controls are big. I think the biggest one you just nailed on is who has access to your bank, who can send money. If you don't have some kind of two-step approval process for larger outbound payments, and you can set that threshold usually with the bank, you probably should. It's not, it's not to say the people you're hiring are potential fraudsters. Usually what happens is someone hits hard times, they're in a pickle financially, something happens, and so their mindset shift. It's not that they're trying to commit fraud. Their mind shift shifts into the position of, I'm in a bad shape. Let me just borrow or
Mhm.
quickly solve this problem, and then I'll make it right down the road. And so it's not like they're trying to commit fraud, at least not in their mind, but it happens. And you know, I think I've seen it a handful of time with our clients where they had a controller or they had someone in the office that just embezzled money essentially and stole from those companies. So yeah, don't get complacent on the financials, review them. Don't get complacent on your fraud prevention there. Have two-step verification processes. Control the access who can manage those bank accounts or actually send money out. Um, you know, kind of a similar examples, with one of my first factoring companies, we had a client that was with us for about 5 years, I think, give or take a little bit. Fantastic client, never, ever had an issue with them. Uh, hit hard times financially, unfortunately, lost some big debtors, was faced with the decision of not being able to make payroll or submitting some documents to the factoring company that maybe haven't been delivered yet and weren't valid documents. And they chose that latter. And so they submitted those documents. And so just kind of an example of where we, you know, were complacent. We trusted that the same process would continue working, didn't have controls in place because, hey, we trust this client. They're never going to do anything to kind of screw us over. And that's exactly what happened. Desperate times create opportunities for people to create that fraud. And they are not always doing out of a place to be
Yeah.
bad, to be bad actors. It happens. They make a decision. They are willing to rob Peter to pay Paul because they think it's the better outcome. So you just have to have your head on a swivel at all times. And unfortunately, with this advancement in technology, and I keep saying AI, and I can't stress it enough. I mean, it's amazing how much it's shortcut just in my day-to-day life. So I imagine for the frosters, it's shortcutted even more. And so it's out there. It's swimming all around us. It's not going away anytime soon. I'm not sure if it's ever going to go away. So you have to be aware of it. You have to be ready for it. And that doesn't mean stifle your sales funnel or stifle your revenue funnel because you're scared of fraud. It just means
Mhm.
dedicate time to it. Treat it like you would generating revenue. Make sure you don't have a leaky bucket. So it doesn't matter how much revenue you bring in on this side. If you're leaky bucket on this side, it
Yeah.
negates every revenue you bring in. So just stay on top of it.
No, dude, I couldn't agree more. And speaking of that, what is a company like Denim doing to ensure that their customers' information is safe, and that like what preventative steps do you guys actively work on, in regards to paperwork fraud and everything else to make sure that that money, that all of that transaction is being protected?
Yeah, we got a lot of layers of defense that we're currently implementing. So when a client comes on board, we're doing all the verification ID checks. What we don't want to do is have a bad actor, fraudster, posing as a legitimate carrier out there, and then what happens is a bunch of UCCs or broker, whoever, a bunch of UCCs get filed on those good companies for no reason, which could harm their reputation, which could prevent them from getting money from certain customers out there. So we're preventing at that level. Once you become a client, We have technology on the back end, so we are looking at the paperwork being submitted. So if you're a broker running an agent model, let's say, and so maybe the agents are the one presenting the paperwork to Denim, you don't always have your hands on it. Well, we're going to let you know if something looks fishy about that document, about that paperwork. If we're gotten $1,500 invoices for the last 6 months, and all of a sudden we get a $10,000 invoice, we're going to flag it. We're going to reach out to the owner and say, hey, something's not quite right. From your debtors, we're doing everything from your basic credit checks. We want to make sure we tell you, are they credit worthy? Can they pay their bills? They tell you you're net 30. We show they paid net 60. Are you sure you still want to go forward with this deal? So we're doing that. We're vetting the debtor payment trends after you submitted the invoice. Do we notice signs that they're paying slower? Things are wrong. We're vetting their email domains and their contact information to make sure that looks right. So we're trying to add in these layers. Not only are we preventing bad fraudulent paperwork getting through, but are the customers that you're doing your business with remaining credit worthy? Because that's a big one as well. And then for our broker clients out there that are working with carriers, and same with carriers, if you're submitting any kind of bank change or a new bank account information, we're vetting that through some of the tools we talked about previously. Do the account numbers match? Do the routing numbers match? Is this a new account? Has this account had activity in the past? Does everything pass that smell test? If it doesn't, then I'm probably going to have either yourself or myself reach out to that carrier and confirm this is their old bank information, because we've seen that too, right? We've seen carriers submit banking changes that wasn't the carrier trying to get paid from brokers that were legitimate loads, but for a fraudulent actor that was spoofing these carriers' identity. So we're taking all these measures, and then we're doing stuff in the back end from a macro standpoint to kind of make sure there's no funky accounting business going on. To make sure that the what you call the standard deviation, that everything falls within that range, like we talked about earlier. Does the invoice amount make sense? Is there a sudden large invoice jump? Why does that exist? Did you submit paperwork that says you went from California to New York in a day? Things of that nature that just seem way off, way kind of funky. And then of course we're partnered with people like My Carrier Portal and Highway to vet these carriers and make sure information stays up to date. So it's a number of tactics. One thing that we learned is that I keep preaching on here is you can't get complacent. So we're trying to refresh that, but also trying to balance our client experience, because I think the freight industry is a very fun, exciting, lucrative industry. Unfortunately, the price we pay for that is having to kind of sit through this bad actors, this fraud that exists out there. And so my goal is to be in the background for you. And so you can concentrate on growing your revenue, growing your customer base, growing your business. And if there's issues, we'll talk about them. Otherwise, if everything's good, you shouldn't have to worry about it. So that's what Denim's trying to do.
Yeah.
I think we're one of the few factoring companies out there that is doing that. I think look, we're a tech company first, factoring company second. And the reason I say that is because for most factoring companies out there, it's the lending of the money, it's the purchase of the invoices, providing capital. That's their main product, and that is a very important thing we do. But the second thing we do is provide this technology stack to you. Yes, from fraud prevention, but also automation on the back end. So one thing I talked about is take time to build in your fraud prevention in your company. Well, you got to have time to do that. And so if you're constantly swamped with back office stuff, getting paperwork out, collecting, paying carriers, you don't have time to do that. So we've got a lot of automation tools that give you that time back, so you can concentrate on other things. So we kind of take a dragnet approach to how we go about this, and how we kind of give you the tools to grow your business, but also prevent that fraud.
Yeah, it's I mean, there you bring up a lot of really great points there. And what one thing I want to just point out, and this is another thing that we've had happen recently. And again, you guys, when you're pulling carriers off of loads for whatever reason, right? If they had access to the bill of lading or whatever that looks like, you guys, they might try and invoice you. All right. And that's something that we recently had. We track everything, right? Like we know exactly what's going on with our stuff. And this is going to be a thing that we're going to have to monitor as we grow and scale, because it's a lot easier to point that out when we're smaller. I could see this being an issue where somebody just sends in an invoice they have a bill of lading, they can doctor those signatures. You might just say approve, send it in. And you might not take a second to see oh, wait a second, I pulled that carrier off because they weren't able to go pick up the load We sent them that bill of lading and stuff. So again, you guys, there's these little things operationally that you need to be aware of, because again, all it takes is one email from somebody, from a carrier rep or a sales rep that says, yeah, approved. And because they did not even stop to be like, wait a second, we pulled these guys off. That carrier name doesn't match up with our records. This is why you need multiple checks and balances in place for payments, because again, it might only be $5,000, but trust me, $5,000 is a lot of money if it happens once, let alone 2, 3, 4, 5 times out there. Because again, if they get paid by that once, that's all they need, you guys. And then they know they found that lazy rep. And that's where, Chad, and I know we're gonna have to wrap up, but like, I think that's where a lot of fraud makes its way into the organization is they want to find the people who don't care. They will call in, they find the people who don't, picks here, delivers here, this is what it weighs, this is what it pays. Oh, perfect, send it over. Boom. That's all they need. Again, like you as a carrier rep or a sales rep asking multiple questions in that load booking time, you guys, that deters a lot of the fraud, because they're like, this isn't an easy target. I'm going to go on to the next one and find one.
Yeah, they're probing. And, we as running a legitimate business spend all our time growing that business, making it better, build processes. Those are fraudsters spend all their time probing, evolving their tactics, and trying to find that weak spot, like you just said. And yeah, it's complacency. It's not asking the extra questions. It's not making the phone call that gives them that in it. And once they have it, they sink their teeth. And I can promise you this: fraud is not slow. When fraud happens, it is instant and it is expensive. And it is a very, very expensive lesson to learn. And so if you're out there thinking, well, I can react fast enough, you won't.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right tools and the right walls in place, fraud will get you in an instant. It'll be 24 hours, 48 hours, 50,000, 5,000, 100,000, $500,000 out the door. You're not getting it back, because they're going to transfer it into either some kind of cryptocurrency or offshores. And so you're going to be looking back and saying, well, I'm going to work on fraud prevention now. That's going to be a $250,000 lesson I just learned. And so it hurts. But it's quick. And you're exactly right. These guys are spending all their time probing, because that is their job. That is their full time.
That's their literal job. Chad, thank you so much for the time today, man. How does anybody reach out to you to find out more about what you got going on? Maybe they want to pick your brain about a couple of things.
Yeah, feel free to find us at denim.com. You can also email me directly at ccapooth@denim.com. Happy to answer any questions. Been in the freight factoring side for since 2009, so I've seen all sorts of type of fraud. And at the same time, I think I can help you a lot with the kind of your credit and your risk decision, how you go about it, how you make sure you're picking the right debtor. So feel free to reach out to me anytime, or reach out to Denim if you're interested in our factoring services or any of our kind of automation tools that we built in out there for brokers and carriers. Happy to help, or happy to point you in the right direction of someone that can help.
Perfect. Chad, thank you so much. That's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show. If you're feeling ambitious after this one, which you should be, because Chad just dropped a masterclass for you guys, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, that's how your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out.